Angeles.
We're going to have more on that story today for sure. Meantime, President Obama was criticized this week for his actions in both Afghanistan and Libya. He angered some lawmakers by not consulting Congress before using U.S. forces in Libya. But Friday, the House voted down a bill to cut off money for the Pentagon operations there in Libya. Joining me from Washington now, Republican Congressman Rob Wittman of Virginia. Representative Wittman, thank you for joining me.
Good morning, Alex.
Well, good morning to you. Why did you vote yes on that bill?
Well, I felt like Congress needed to exert its power as it's supposed to under the Constitution with war efforts. And I do believe that the president needed to come before Congress for permission to engage in Libya.
Okay. Was there a symbolic protest with these votes from the House? Is that what what was behind this?
Well, I think it was the House's effort to object to how this effort had been partaken by the president. The Congress has a role here, and the Congress wanted to make sure that it exerted its role in any kind of effort of conflict that the U.S. is engaged in.
Now, okay, help me to understand, is the conflict for you with the effort that's been undertaken in Libya, or the way it's come about?
Well, I think it's both the effort and the way it's come about. Obviously, this is an effort of war there in Libya, I think, by any definition. And secondly, I think the Congress needs to be involved in the decision-making. Even when you go back to the decisions being made with Iraq and Afghanistan, both those situations, the Congress was involved by engagement with the executive branch on decision-making about those efforts. I think the same thing should have occurred here. The president should have come to Congress first to say he was contemplating actions in Libya, even though it might have been with NATO partners. He should have come to Congress in addition to consulting with NATO partners. Instead, just consulting with NATO without consulting with Congress, I think, was not the right way to go about that.
But it's almost as if, you know, the horse has already been let out of the barn. I mean, we're in it, so you decide to withdraw the funding for these operations. So really, what can be done? What can be changed? What do you hope to accomplish with this?
Well, we want to make sure that we're defining what's going on there. We didn't get a clear set of mission or objectives or timelines there. All of that was lacking from the president. Yesterday's legislation defined operations there to be non-combat operations, and only those operations in support of NATO. So yesterday's bill was to clearly define what the U.S. involvement would be there in Libya, and for Congress to make that definition on what those operations might be.
How do you perceive U.S. policy in Libya? Do you see it as a failure or not?
Well, I see it right now somewhat as puzzling. If you look at what's going on elsewhere in the Arab world, the other conflicts there, you look at consistency in policy making, and what the Congress needs to do is to understand where are we going to be in those theaters, what are we going to be doing as a military, and we want to be able to understand that, especially as we continue to be engaged in Iraq and Afghanistan. If we don't understand what are the conditions under which the U.S. may inject itself into those particular areas, it becomes very frustrating for Congress, especially at a time when our military forces are spread very, very thin, where we're at a time where resources are stretched to the max and where we're having to borrow dollars to engage in these areas. We need to be clear as to where decisions are being made, how they're being made, and where we inject our military force around the world.
Okay. Virginia Republican Representative Rob Wittman, many thanks for your time on MSNBC Saturday.
Thank you so much, Alex.
A small New York community is reeling today as victims from an execution-style killing spree at a long